Example 2. Establish the identity tangent squared of x plus 1 times the cosine squared of x minus 1 is equal to the negative tangent squared of x. All right, so here is another identity that we need to establish, okay? We are going to start with one side of this equation, and we're going to use algebraic manipulation plus, okay? All right, so clearly here the left side is more complicated than the right side. You can actually do something with the left side, so we're going to start there. So let's go ahead and write down the left side. We've got tangent squared x plus 1 times cosine squared x minus 1, okay, equals, okay? So we need to start manipulating this guy, okay? The right side is what we want to get to. We're not going to use it at all, okay? We're just going to keep generating equivalent expressions, okay, until we achieve this negative tangent squared x, okay? When you look at this left side, okay, so we're going to multiply the first terms together, okay? So if you do that, you're going to get tangent squared x times the minus 1. That's going to be minus tangent squared x, okay? Now multiply the inner terms. So you're going to do 1 terms together, okay? So 1 times negative 1 is going to give you minus 1, okay? All right, so if we look at what we've been left with, okay, I can't really do anything with this tangent squared of x, and I can't do anything with the cosine squared of x, and I can't do anything with the negative 1. Can't combine them with anything. Our end goal is tangent squared x, or negative tangent squared x. So our answer needs to involve a tangent, okay? So if you look at this, probably this is the most complicated part that you're left with here, the tangent squared x times the cosine squared of x. So try to do something with it. Like I said, if you don't know where to go, just start trying things, okay? So what I'm going to do here is I am going to just, if you're in doubt, just turn it into sines and cosines. So if you have a tangent squared x, that's going to turn into sine squared x over cosine squared of x. That's the tangent squared of x. And that quantity is multiplied by cosine squared x, okay? Remember, see what happens with this tangent squared x times the cosine squared of x, okay? All right, so let's simplify what we've ended up with, okay? If you notice, when we turned this tangent squared x into sine squared x over cosine squared x, that left us with a cosine squared x in the bottom and 1 in the top, and they cancel out. And so this piece leaves you with sine squared x, okay? That's what that becomes. I am going to write the remaining terms, okay? All right, so if you pay attention to what is left, okay, and you know the end game, okay, here's the end game, okay, you want a negative tangent squared x. There it is, okay, but you still have these 3 other terms, the sine squared x, the plus cosine squared x, and the minus 1 hanging around, okay? They can't just go poof and vanish. You got to say why they go bye-bye. All right, so in the next step, what we're going to do, okay, is we're going to rearrange things. We are adding and subtracting, and we can reorder them as long as we keep the positive quantities positive and the negative quantities Pythagorean identity, okay? And then I am going to put the minus tangent squared x. I'm not combining that with anything, and I still have this negative 1 hanging around, okay? Well, watch what happens, okay? Pythagorean identity says that sine squared x plus cosine squared x is 1, okay? So I'm going to have 1 minus tangent squared x, and then I have this other minus 1 hanging around, okay? And then what happens? 1 minus 1, those guys cancel, and it leaves me with the right side of the equation, or the identity. Using basic trigonometric identities and algebraic manipulation, we have proved that that left side is equivalent to the negative tangent squared of x. So we have verified the identity, and we are done.